Hello, my name is Joshua Redden and welcome to my presentation for researching and developing engaging pedagogies. Firstly, I'll provide a situational analysis of the school I attended during my first practicum. In my first practicum, I taught at Clark College in Kellyville, student name. It is a K-12 school with 1,639 students. The school has a clear Christian belief system which shapes the school's approach to teaching and planning for the students. The school's virtues are also based on these beliefs. Clark College is very well resourced and places a high value on technology integration in the classroom, with every student having an iPad and each class having an interactive whiteboard. The school is also very high achieving, particularly NAPLAN tests. In 2019, across all years that sat the NAPLAN, there were 10% more students achieving top 2 bands in almost every test domain when compared to the rest of New South Wales. The Stage 1 Year 2 classroom I taught in consisted of 23 students and 2 teachers who taught under the collaborative teaching model. One key piece of information about this class is that during mathematics and English, the class is organised based on student achievement, with about 12 students in each class during these lessons. There was minimal language diversity, with only 2 students with a language background other than English. In terms of achievement, the class was fairly consistent with the school's overall results. The majority of the class were strong achievers. There were 3 students who were below the average learning progression of their peers, and 2 exceeding the class progression. Finally, both teachers placed strong value on positive reward systems, such as prizes and praise for their students. I similarly agreed with their pedagogical approach and continued to implement the systems already in place for a sense of continuity. As a result of 3 main factors related to school context, being well-resourced, strong focus on technology in the classroom, and the classroom organisation during mathematics, I've decided to implement purposeful use of technology as my 21st century pedagogy. A definition of purposeful technology use is necessary here, as there has been significant push from many parties to use technology in classrooms, but there has been a lack of direction towards how to do this effectively. Purposeful use of technology, then, is when technology is used to directly meet learning outcomes. The CMR model is helpful when evaluating whether you are purposefully using technology or simply substituting current tools of education, Padmiginus 2019. The rationale and practicality of implementing this pedagogy into the classroom stems from the understanding that any educational tool will be most effective if it aligns with the pedagogical beliefs of the classroom teacher and meets the needs of the students. In the context of my first practicum, this means the chosen pedagogy is likely to be successful as it aligns with my mentor teacher's beliefs, the belief of the school as a whole, and most importantly is what engages students in the classroom. It is practical due to the vast amount of funding and resources dedicated to the technology in the classroom as well. As a result of my chosen pedagogy, here is a brief overview of my mini unit of work centered around purposeful use of technology and student engagement in mathematics. The in-depth lesson plans will be shown in the coming slides if you would like to examine them further. The first lesson will be an introduction lesson to the topic of 3D objects, with a focus on building student understanding and familiarity through definitions and manipulatives. The second lesson will be the practical application of the knowledge learned in Lesson 1, with a specific focus on the relevance the concepts have to the real world. This will be achieved through a treasure hunt for shapes around the classroom. The final lesson will be used to give students a chance to display their understanding and learning from the mini-unit. Students will be able to demonstrate their knowledge of an object they are familiar with using a comic strip application on their iPads. In this section, I'll outline 3 data collection methods that will be used to evaluate the impact of purposeful technology use on engagement in mathematics. I will also outline the tools that will be used to make the data collection methods feasible and effective. Here is a brief overview of the data collection methods I will use. Firstly, I will use student self-reflection as a data collection method. Here is a quick summary of my proposed plan. I'll be using the online discussion board Padlet during the conclusion of the first lesson. The Padlet will ask students 5 questions that target different markers of engagement stemming from the MEE framework, as you can see on the right-hand side of the presentation. The theoretical rationale for using student reflection comes from the real framework developed by Munns G. 2006. This suggests that true engagement occurs when students are reflective, they place value on their work, and are active participants in the classroom. All these markers can be met by encouraging students to critically reflect upon and express their classroom experiences. The second aspect of the collection plan is student observation. To collect this data, I'll be conducting observations of students during the main sequence of the second lesson, using the observation template displayed on the screen. The main purpose of this collection method is to gather data that provides evidence for student learning behaviour. The prompting questions displayed in the template will be used to narrow the scope of my observations to engagement markers that closely link to the COA markers discussed in the MEE framework. The template also allows me to follow the small group scan method highlighted by Burton and Bartlett 2009, who suggest it is one efficient method to use when observing multiple students during a lesson. Finally, students will complete a learning experience during the body of the final lesson. The product of this learning experience will demonstrate student understanding from the mini unit of work. Once the students have completed the work sample, they will post it onto the classroom platform Seesaw for me to assess and analyse against a marking criteria and markers of engagement previously discussed. The research that shaped my use of work samples comes from Taylor, Nolan and Bob 2008, who discuss a number of benefits that come from using work samples as formative assessments of student learning. They highlight that work samples can showcase student accomplishment, demonstrate growth, and the learning process used by students to complete their work. As such, I found it a meaningful tool for measuring student engagement. Once data has been collected and organised, it is crucial to examine it for information of value and meaning to the research. In this presentation, value comes from understanding student engagement and if it is occurring. To achieve this, the above data will be examined against markers of engagement that derive from the MEE framework. If markers of engagement are shown to be met, it will be a strong indication that implementing purposeful use of technology in mathematics would be a useful pedagogy to integrate if I were to return to Practicum 1. Firstly, the data would be examined against the New South Wales mathematics syllabus and success criteria for each lesson to determine if the students are meeting the desired learning outcomes. After the syllabus outcomes have been assessed, my analysis would focus on student engagement, particularly the MEE framework's cognitive, operative, and affective markers. Specific markers have been created for each data collection method and tailored to the lesson they are designed for. By focusing on attributes that are specific to each learning experience, I am able to gather more detailed and relevant data in relation to student engagement levels and further develop a complete understanding of the effectiveness of my 21st century pedagogy in mathematics. As with any study, it is also crucial to highlight the affordances and limitations of the work to ensure that bias is limited and that the researcher takes into account areas where problems could arise. This has been done extensively with the list displayed on the presentation. By spending significant time assessing and determining the potential shortcomings of my analysis methods, I can find creative solutions to limit the effect this could have on my data analysis. For example, by understanding that some students may not have a complete vocabulary to articulate their experience during a personal reflection, I am able to offer alternative methods of communicating their experience, such as a star rating system that Padlet provides. This is one of the many ways that I have considered the affordances and limitations of my research and made meaningful adjustments accordingly. Teachers are continually in a process of professional development and learning. At the centre of this process should be teacher self-reflection on both practice and beliefs. However, reflection alone will not produce professional growth. Rather, teachers need to consider strengths and weaknesses from their reflection and make feasible plans to improve practice. This is what I have set out to achieve through reflecting on this research task. Through my reflection, I recognise that I previously lacked skills necessary to measure student learning or engagement. However, as a result of my research and the plan I developed, I now have a clear, structured plan that I am able to implement in future classrooms. Most importantly, I am able to use it to gauge student learning progression and engagement. Furthermore, I have specifically aimed to meet 3 main teaching standards through this assessment task. Firstly, 2.6.1 was targeted and met through my extensive implementation of the teaching pedagogy, purposeful use of technology in the classroom to meet learning outcomes. Secondly, 3.6.1 was met through the use of my data collection strategy and analysis methods to evaluate how effective my teaching would be. And finally, 5.4.1 was achieved by extensively assessing the student data collected and reflecting on the results for possible future improvements.